Hi, I'm Sonya Buys, and welcome back to the second half of Chatting with Sonya, and these are my friends. Last episode, we were talking about women of color and our mental health. It took a lot to unpack, so we decided that we would do a part two to that. So thank you for joining us again. And again, these are my friends. I'm guessing you probably would know them by now, but just in case this is your first time tuning in, we're going to start over this way. And everybody just introduce yourself.
I'm Juanita Stokes.
I'm Jada Best.
I'm Vanessa Belen.
I'm Alicia Aldridge.
And welcome back, ladies.
Yes.
Like I said, this subject is it's so important for us to be having. And we're just grateful. So we're going to have Mrs. Rhonda Ramirez join us again on this episode of Chatting with Sonya. And she'll be back to unpack some of the questions that we didn't have a chance to get to on last episode. So we're grateful to have her back again. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure. Thanks for joining us and thanks for spending some time with us. We really, really appreciate it. So we're going to just dive right in. Again, this is Women of Color. I'm chatting with Sonya. Sonya Buys. These are my friends. And today we're just discussing how important it is to be proactive as far as our mental health is concerned and why it is that we feel that sometimes it's often overlooked in our communities and our colors, and especially women of color. We handle a lot with our families, our children, our careers, and so much more. So we're just going to start with Vanessa this time. And so last episode, we was just talking about the trauma of it all, many different facets of it. So Vanessa, if you want to start us off.
Well, I just kind of want to speak a little bit about my experience. I lost a son 5.5 years ago to gun violence. At the time, I was seeking therapy, but not because of that. I was already in therapy. For stuff that I had to deal with from a relationship I had gotten out of. It started while I was in the relationship, and then I left the relationship, and I still continued on with counseling. And after that situation took place with my son, I continued to go to see my therapist. It was weird because when I first saw her after my son had passed away, it was a few days. I kept my appointment. It was a few days after it happened, and I just kind of showed up, sat on her couch like I normally do, and she's going on about, how am I doing? What's going on? How have you been? And I'm like, oh yeah, my son died the other day, and she just like completely turned into a ghost, and she was just like, was it the situation that happened, that was all over the media? And I said yes. And so she immediately called her, her secretary and was just like, cancel all my appointments for the whole day. She's like, and then she's just bawling. And I think, I almost kind of had to console her in a way. I know that was just to hear it was a big deal. For me to have to even openly tell her that was like, and the way I said it was as if it was nothing, like, oh yeah, my son died the other day, just sitting on the couch, like it was so normal. She probably didn't know how to handle that. But I will say that she immediately like straightened herself up, and she was just like, all right, let's talk about this. You know what I mean? I did continue to see her for a few months after that. And I mean, she was super supportive. Like she came to the benefit, she came to the viewing, she came to the funeral. Like, I think she was somebody who kind of like went above and beyond her job description. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that because that made me feel even more comfortable to be able to be open with her, which I'm not saying all therapists would do that. But I think as a person who was a mother as well, she probably just felt like I really need to support her a little bit extra. I'm not sure why people are afraid to go and get counseling, for example, which is free of charge from like the Crime Victim Center. They have so many services on hand. It is completely anonymous and private, and and even for me, like I've struggled just even till this day, I still have my struggles with it, but like, how can we get past that? Like we suffered something so traumatic, how can we go back to being able to be open about it and talking to someone about it? Because for me, it was like, okay, I did this for a little while. Now I don't need it anymore. And it's why I stopped going to therapy, because I was like, well, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm dealing. not realizing like I probably was spiraling.
Okay.
You know, it's deep, because even after so many years, like I still have my moments where it'll be something that triggers it, and I'm like, when it triggers it, it's so out of control, and I'm like, how do I deal with that? And it's like, I am busy, like like Juanita mentioned, like just being so busy with life. Like, how do you go back to finding some time to like going back to that, thinking that you already addressed it for yourself by going to therapy and just walking away because you felt you were fine, and now you're like, I'm not fine. So I'm not sure, like, how do I go back to that?
If that's Rhonda?
Rhonda?
I don't know if you can you hear us, Rhonda?
I can hear you.
Okay. I guess the question, maybe, was there a question? Like
Just like how, as someone who's already gone to get help, like how do I go back to that again? Like, I think for some people, because life catches up to us, because death happens, but life doesn't stop, right? Like we still have to go back to work, be a mom, or, pay bills and handle your home life. Like how do I say, I need to stop and take that minute for myself and say, like, I do need to go back and not feel embarrassed in a sense, right? Because you want to be that strong person, and people do look at you as that strong person. Like, how do you say that it's okay, and just say, I'm going to go back to getting some help again and just making that time for myself?
Well, I think when you're talking about therapy, it was definitely appropriate for your therapist to have emotions and to cry with you. I would be afraid if you had a therapist who was just stoic and there was no emotion there, because we're human too. And so I think you have therapy when you need it, and they should be giving you the tools to use that to help and cope. So someone might be in therapy for 1 year, they might be in therapy for 5 years, and then they don't need it until something happens, a traumatic event. So it's okay to do the off and on. It's expected. It's appropriate. What you're doing now is part of healing. Running for public service is part of healing. Talking about it, this is part of healing. So you actually are stronger than what I think you are, to have gone through the traumatic event that you did. I worked at Strong Events, and at that time I worked at the high school, and so I do remember your son, and I did cry when that happened too. So what you're doing now, just talking about it, because there are many other people that have experienced horrible, horrible things, and what makes me nervous is that they're not talking about it. So what you're doing now is appropriate, and you will know when it's time for you to go back and seek help, but it doesn't have to be forever.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was a great question, Vanessa. And so now basically the time may never come where you not want to go. It's kind of like a tune-up, maybe, Rhonda. Just knowing, like, maybe you feel okay this month, and maybe next month you just don't want to revert back, and you just come and take time to come and see your therapist. Hit or miss throughout life, because like she said, life is continuously happening.
Right. Yeah, that would be appropriate.
Mm-hmm. So we're on to Alicia. You're up next.
Yeah, so Vanessa just really messed me up with
Yeah,
that, y'all.
we love you.
Thank you for sharing your story and your journey, because Vanessa, you are a great role model for a lot of us, and you probably don't even know it. When I didn't even know you and I would see this playing out, I had the opportunity to meet Elijah, and he's just a wonderful kid, and he's charismatic and sweet, and you did a good job there. You know what I mean? You have a lot to be proud of, and you're my girl. So as I get myself back together here, I just wanted to talk about some of the things that Vanessa was saying, you know, why people don't maybe go. And I've been listening to Brene Brown. I don't know if you're familiar with her at all, Rhonda. Brene Brown, she's done a lot of research around shame, vulnerability, and guilt. And I think that sometimes that might hinder us from going to seek out help. You know, we don't, first of all, we, as people, women of color, we're not good at being vulnerable in front of people we don't know. We just don't, because there's a trust. There's a trust that has to be built up before we can actually be vulnerable in front of people, right? And then there could be something that was traumatic that happened to us in our past that creates shame. There's a lot of things that have happened in my family where I've had to deal with a mom who, you know, had a drug habit and was an alcoholic for over half my life. And she dealt with a lot of shame. And you'd be surprised how much of that you take on as a child growing up. So there's some stuff I've had to unpack over the years too, and just kind of talk through with people, licensed professionals, and people of God who have helped me walk through my experiences. So do you think that's some of the reasons why people don't, some people of color do not go to see a therapist, because they don't know how to unpack some of that shame and some of that guilt and then being vulnerable in front of somebody that they don't know?
Absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely correct. And I that to only go for therapy or someone to work with your child when they're 5 years old. So if you really think about, imagine the last thing that you remember when you were younger. I remember being 3 years old and in preschool, and so I thought I knew everything at that time. And they had asked, you know, our mother's name, and I said, "Mommy," because I didn't know she had a first name. I was very devastated when everyone else knew their mother's name except myself. So I went home and I told her I was very upset because I didn't know her name. That was 3 years old. So when we are pregnant and we have a lot of stress and anxiety in the womb, the baby can feel that. And so there is a time where when they're younger and things like that. But as far as feeling ashamed or embarrassed, yes, that is true for women of color, at least for myself. And I think having this unique opportunity to, you know, have the experience of being a therapist and also being a Black woman, because it's so much that I can relate to with my clients. So you're absolutely correct there. But what I want to continue saying is that just having this platform is part of therapy. It's actually speaking for women who won't speak for themselves. So that's why I'm really excited to be on here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Rhonda.
very much.
And we appreciate you being here because, like you said, sometimes we won't seek out help. We just won't do it. And Alicia and I was having a conversation about being mommies and postpartum. I remember having my son, and for those of you all know me, I have a wonderful young man that I talk about all the time. And I just I know now that I experienced postpartum, and I never ever talked about it. And I don't know, maybe it was a little bit of guilt and a little bit of shame, because normally when people have babies, it's this big, happy occasion. He was actually born a few weeks early. And so he had a little bit of little baby issues here and there. And I was really, really sad. I didn't really talk about it as much. And I cried in the shower all the time. And it was a lot. And you don't want to express these feelings because everyone else is so happy. Oh, there's a new baby. And oh my gosh, like, how do you feel? And all these things. And I actually really wanted to say, I feel horrible. This is hard. I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired all the time. And then, like I said, he was premature and he had little issues. And for a long time, I was really, really sad. And I just kept telling my own self, girl, get it together. You'll be okay. This is normal. People have babies all the time. Who are you? This isn't the first. And as I look back in hindsight, maybe I should have said something to my doctor. And I'm sure, like, I wasn't the first and obviously won't be the last. And then I started thinking, like, maybe there's tips that she could have shared with me. Well, maybe, Sonya, you need to start journaling, or you have all these things going on. It's okay. But I never, ever said anything. And eventually, I just dealt with it, as we often do as women of color. And I just moved on. Yeah. And now I know there is such a thing as postpartum, and you are allowed to feel. These feelings are real, they're normal, and they don't just happen to Caucasian women, they actually happen to us too. Right. So, and we just think it's normal. You don't say anything, and you really should talk to somebody, even if it's just another mother. Or when you go to your 6-week checkup, we all know you have those once you have a baby, and you tell your doctor, not feeling quite normal, I'm crying all the time. And so I'm glad we're having these conversations, and these are things that we should be talking about and make mention to our friends, and maybe even check to see if they've gone through the same things, right, ladies? Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Has anybody else experienced postpartum? Sure, you know, I mean, it's a normal thing. Yeah. But you know what? We'll answer that question as soon as we come back. We'll be right back. If you have a story idea or something you'd like to share, email us at chattingwithsonya@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And welcome back. We are back chatting with Sonya and friends. Again, thank you for tuning in to this segment, Chatting with Sonya and Friends. And my friends and I are just talking about women of color and our mental health. And before we went to break, I was just talking about my experience with postpartum. And I just kind of kept it a secret. Not even so much a secret. Did I even know what it was, or did I just dismiss it? Or did I just felt like it was something normal when clearly it was not? And so before we left, I just wanted to ask one of the ladies, did any of you experience postpartum?
I did. I definitely did. Mm-hmm. So, I was 19 when I had my first child, and he was amazing. And it was a really hard experience. I was coming back home from finishing up my first semester in college. Mm-hmm. And having him was difficult, not as far as like having him, but having him, number one, I was in that so-called statistic. Me and my boyfriend at the time, we were not married. We were both 19. Mm-hmm. He was planning to go back to California, and I was home. And it was hard because now I have to take care of a little kid where I didn't want to take care of a kid. I was, career driven. I wanted to worry about my career. I always thought of myself as Terry from Soul Food. Like I was going to be the CEO. I ain't going to have kids till later on in life. I was going to be that wealthy auntie and everything. And, now I got 3 kids. So, but no, I felt like I had all of this, that I had to be, a perfect mom. I had to follow all of these to, everything that everybody put on you. And that was hard at 19. I'm trying to go to school. I got to work now to take care of a kid. And, also my mom was ashamed of me. She was very unhappy with me getting pregnant my senior year of high school. And then the most thing that I regretted the most, I still think about today, is that my goal after high school, I wanted to go off to the Air Force. Mm-hmm. Oh. And if I would have went off to the Air Force, I would have had to give my child up to someone else, give up guardianship. Right. And I was like, no, he's my responsibility. So I had to refocus on what I wanted to do with my career.
Was somebody willing to take him? Was your mom going to watch him for you?
The way I grew up, I didn't want to put that responsibility on my mother, because she already had to help take care of her brothers and sisters. And I didn't want to put that on her. Like I said, it was my child, it was my responsibility, and I had to deal with it.
And also too, back to something that Rhonda had shared, when you go to your 6-week checkup, and also just reading information, I learned that postpartum depression, because I think we keep leaving out that depression part, depression is like a dirty word. It's a negative thing. But I think it's important for our listening audience to know as well, postpartum depression increases after your second child or your third child. So the way our bodies shift and our hormones and all of the things that happen after giving birth. So I experienced postpartum depression with my son. It really caught me by surprise. I had a second child. They told me I was advanced maternal age. But I did have a child at the age of 40, which was a huge shift and a shock on my system altogether, mentally, emotionally. Love him dearly, but just overwhelmed. A sense of, like you said, sadness and things of that nature. Didn't really want to say anything about it. At that time, I was a part of a Mommy and Me group, but by hearing the other moms share, gave me an opportunity to open up. So just something to be aware of, that when you're having those thoughts and feeling that way, it's normal, but to share with someone.
So did the Mommy and Me group, did that help you a lot by being able to just express how you were feeling and others possibly feeling the same?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I didn't think about it and didn't really acknowledge what I was feeling until I heard other moms talking about it. And I was like, oh, that is way I'm feeling. Oh, okay. I get it. I understand. So, just really being able to have some self-care, take a shower, let the baby cry, put the baby in the swing. Like, it's okay. You don't have kind of call it second baby syndrome. I guess I kind of did things a lot differently with my son than I did with my daughter. He certainly cried a lot more than my daughter did. I didn't want to hear her cry, so I would grab her right away. She was always swaddled to me, or I carried her around when I did everything. I did not do that with my son. And I think part of it was very helpful with me taking my time as a mom to learn myself as a mom. Now a mother of two.
And that could very well be some of the issues too, because being a first-time new mom, which I was, you're just figuring it out as you go along.
Right.
And everybody parenting style or Mommy and Me styles are different. And so you feel this urgency to cater to every little thing that's going on with this child, and they're fine. Just make sure you're okay.
He's not crying any blood. He's all right. Let that baby
you
cry.
just have to make sure
that baby gonna be all right. Just let that baby cry.
You're doing okay.
Or you get the other side. Juanita, put that baby down. You gonna spoil that baby. Why you keep holding that baby? Because it's my baby, and I love my baby, and I want to nurture my baby, and I want to squeeze my baby and smell my baby and bonds with my baby. But these are the things that we hear. And it's okay, because I kind of feel like 0 to 6 months, they're not going to remember any of that anyway, because around 6 months, they know who you are, they're looking for you and all of those things.
I even noticed, when I was with Ladania, my first child, I noticed I made sure everything was sanitized correctly. Delia, her binky would fall. I'm like, okay, here, baby, there you go. I ain't got time to be running all over here or really going downstairs, boiling the bottle and stuff. I was like, no, girl, you better drink this cold milk. So I know that was mine.
So the joys of having more than one child, huh?
Yes.
I should have kept going.
You guys gotta keep going. When you get to 3, that's a whole different type of species. That's a different type of species. They will make you take your own ovaries out. Take them, donate them for a cause. I don't know how people get the 4. I'd be like, Lord Jesus.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
You're getting hot just talking about
it. It's so hard. People are like, oh, don't you, when you get married, don't you want another one? Hell no. No. Let's be a Brady Bunch and let's blend families. I want to blend. Let's not have more children coming out.
That is so funny.
My experience, with, it wasn't as deep with you guys, but I was 18 when I had my second child.
Oh wow.
My first one was only a few months old when I found out that I was pregnant with my second one. And from the very beginning, I'm very open about this. I didn't want to be pregnant. I'm like, no, I have this baby right here. I don't want another one. And this is a conversation that I have openly had with my children. So that, when they see this, they're not like, oh my God, Mom, I didn't know. No, I spoke about it openly with my kids, especially with my daughter, because I wanted to know, her to know how I was feeling. So of course I made the decision to stay with the pregnancy, and I had my daughter. But when I had her, I was like, I don't like this little girl. Like, her dad would carry her, and I'm like, I don't like neither one. And that was hard for me because I'm like, why am I feeling like this? And I didn't know that I could talk to someone about that. And being that young, you're already afraid of the fact that you're a mom of one, now a mom of two, and you're doing all these things that are so adult, and you're like, who can I talk to? And I didn't have anybody that I could express that to. And it didn't last very long, that feeling of like, I don't want my child. And nobody knew it. Her father didn't know, my mom, like her grandma, no one knew that I even felt that way. And I'm grateful that I got through that, and it was very short. I wasn't the type who was like hurting my child or didn't carry her. When she would cry, I would still care. I'm like, oh, why is she crying now? But that was a lot to deal with at like 18 going on 19 years old, knowing that I have these two little kids, and dealing with that like depression, because it really, at one point it was like a depression of, oh my God, I have two babies. Like, I'm so young. What am I going to do with my life? And not having no one to talk to. And that was really, really hard on me. So like, I'm glad that we get to have this conversation, and like, Rhonda will give us some resources. So like when, others get to see this, they're like, wow, there is help out there, and I'm not alone. These women have their own experiences, and they shared it with us. So yeah, that was a big thing.
I have a question for you, Rhonda. So is that postpartum? Obviously, this was her second child, and it happened a little bit later. Do you know what I mean? Did that happen as she began to grow, or did it happen right away?
No, it happened right away. Like, I had her, and I came home after a couple of days, and like, it was just like an instant feeling of like, I wasn't really sure, I think at the moment, like, what am I feeling and why am I feeling this way? But I do like vividly remember once just kind of looking at my daughter, and I was just like, I don't really like this little girl. She's crying all the time. She doesn't wake up to feed. I was breastfeeding, so I'm like, she doesn't wake up when she needs to. And like, her dad would hold her, and he was great with her. And I'm like, and I was a little jealous too. Like, why is she not crying with him? And, it's just, when whether you're younger or older, like just having these feelings, you don't know for sure why you're having them and how to explain it. And it's hard to even discuss it if you really don't even have somebody you can have that conversation with,
So is that also a form of postpartum?
I think as having babies, we all feel overwhelmed. Our bodies are changing, and I know when I was pregnant with my son, my body was changing too. And please, keep in mind that people, your brains aren't fully developed until you're into your 20s, and so now when we have young parents, it's like we are doing grown-up things now. So, I mean, there are so many different things that can happen with your body and your feelings and things like that. And, it's not unusual for that, because Vanessa, I remember when I had my son, and felt like, there were times where I didn't want to be bothered, so that does seem natural. And then to have one and then one right after the other, it seems more overwhelming. I did want to give some resources. I know that if you are working, there should be something at your job that is called the EAP, or the Employee Assistance Program. And you should be able to get at least 3 to 6 visits for free through your employer. So if you are working, you can connect with maybe HR and talk about the EAP program. There's also crisis services, and so that would be immediate. If you need to speak to a counselor or a therapist, they're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so you're able to talk to someone right on the phone if you're in that immediate crisis.
Right.
There's also, in crisis services, their phone number is area code 814. It's 456-2014. And then there's another one that's Erie County Care Management, and they're actually the umbrella. They're over all of the services, and they would be able to even connect you and get you hooked up, even if you don't have health insurance and things like that. And their number is area code 814-528-6000. 0600. So I wanted to put that out there.
Well, you know what? That pretty much ends it for now. But thank you so much, Rhonda, for joining us today. We shared a lot. That was a lot. And as women of color, we just, it's just a lot. It's a lot. I mean, that's just for lack of better word. We're living everyday life, and everyday life is happening. So we're very grateful that you were able to join us today and give us some resources and help us unpack some of these feelings that we're going through today. And thank you all very much, my panel, for sharing and being so open and honest and vulnerable even at times. I appreciate that. So Rhonda, if you have anything else you'd like to say before we leave out today?
No, I just want to say that, I'm excited that we're starting to have the conversation, and thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. And ladies, again, we will definitely be talking about this at another date, another show, because it is important, and it's okay. Whatever it is you may be struggling with, whatever it is that you may be going through, there is help out there. There is help available. And just know that everybody goes through something, and you are not alone. You don't have to be embarrassed or ashamed. It's normal. Take care of your mental health as best as you can. And let us all try and be proactive instead of reactive. And we'll all be better off for it. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate it. And thank you for taking this ride with us. And thanks again to our very special guest, Mrs. Rhonda Ramirez. And hopefully it won't be the last you'll see of her either. We'd love to have her back. But thank you all so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.